Well, I was requested to speak on the topic of the essential principles of Krishna conscious household life, and so I agreed to do that. So for 2 evenings, that will be our topic. We'll start with this evening and continue tomorrow. I do see a few householders here. I hear a few children here. I see some children also. Anything that I'm going to say is just for sake of reinforcing what you already know, because you already know. I'm not going to say something you've never heard before. Oh, I've never heard that before. But it's important to hear. And Srila Prabhupada, as our founder Acharya, he certainly wasn't neglectful in helping us to understand what our duties are. When Prabhupada presented Krishna consciousness, largely his immediate audience, his devotee audience, was the young brahmacharis and uniquely coined brahmacharinis, the temple devotees, were those. And to some extent there were householders, but especially in the beginning, that wasn't abundant. But Prabhupada understood his audience was the people of the world. The entire world. That's a nice vision. The entire world is your audience. He was in the role of the world Acharya. I've heard Jayapataka Maharaj describe this several times when he was in Los Angeles with Srila Prabhupada. So this was in, I guess, 1970. 70, 71, in that time frame. Prabhupada was describing to him a society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, would be made up of householders spread throughout the city and having gatherings of sangha throughout the city and throughout the whole country. And what Srila Prabhupada was speaking about was something that we didn't have any experience of. So Jayapataka Maharaj remarked, Prabhupada, do you see, what is it that you see? It said I can't remember the words that Prabhupada used, but he just repeated that there will be, as a world religion, Krishna consciousness movement will be like that. So as all of you are doing, leading responsible household lives and putting Krishna at the center. So what is that vision that Prabhupada gave for our householders? I was asked, this was many years ago in Houston, something like 8 or 9 years ago, I was asked to give a seminar, like a 4 or 5 day seminar on Grihastha life. So, 4 or 5 day seminar. That's challenging on one topic, I thought. So let me do some research. Let me check and see what Prabhupada said about Krishna conscious household life. And there's one instruction, that's the starting point of this evening's talk, that Srila Prabhupada emphasized for the householder. And that one instruction was charitable, being charitable. There's a now very famous, hey boys, shh, shh, shh. There's now a very famous instruction Prabhupada gave to one of my godbrothers, Chandrasekhar. Prabhu Chandrasekhar is now in charge of the prison ministry, or as you say in Indianese, he's the prison ministry in charge. So he has this ministry, and when he was first married, on the very day that he was married, the day after he was married, he was on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada. And I'll do my best to paraphrase the dialogue. Chandrasekhar Prabhu asked Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, now that I am married, could you tell me what it is that is my duty? That's our topic for this evening. Essential principles of Krishna conscious family life. And Prabhupada told the story, said that what your duty is that when you prepare your meals, before you take your meal, you should stand at the door and call out 3 times. Is there anyone who has not taken their meal yet? Please come. You can take your meal here. And after you do that, and everyone that comes is fed, then you can take your meal. That is your duty as a householder. And Chandrasekhar thought, Prabhupada probably didn't understand my question. So the morning walk went on, and at the very end, just before the walk was finished, he asked the same question. I'll do it for emphasis' sake. Srila Prabhupada, I've just been married. What is my duty as a householder? And Prabhupada gave exactly the same answer. Your duty as a householder is, when you prepare your meals each day, you go to the door and you call out 3 times. Is there anyone who has not taken their meal? And after you've fed everyone that has not taken their meal, then you take your meal. That is your duty as a Krishna conscious householder. Now in America, no one's going to come to your door. So who's going to do such a thing? I was describing this one time. It wasn't in Houston, but I was describing this, and in the audience, someone I thought was having a medical problem. They were like convulsing practically. And I stopped and said, are you okay? Is everything all right? And they started crying. I said, is something wrong? Right? I just stopped everything. And he said, it's not like that anymore. What do you mean? He said, I went back to the place where I grew up, and my father did exactly that. He would call out 3 times, as anyone has not taken their meal, just like you said, Prabhupada said he did every day. And then after feeding everyone, still he would not take his meal until he found the sadhu in the village. And he would bring the sadhu to our home every day, and he would feed the sadhu, and then he would take his meal. I said, that's very nice. He said, yes, but that culture is lost. I went back to my village, and no one does that, and that poor sadhu is practically neglected. No one cares for him. All that culture is gone. And he was just lost it. Started crying and crying and crying. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada writes it very simply. the duty of the brahmachari is the sacrifice of the hearing process. That's the brahmachari's duty. Shrotriyam brahmanishtam is to become practiced in that way. And find happiness. Find such inner happiness and contentment that he wouldn't consider anything other than that because he's so happy, because of that inner contentment. And for the householder, there's a duty to earn wealth, because you can't maintain your household without earning wealth. The other way around, if there's financial problem in a household, it disturbs the fabric of household life. It can destroy the whole situation. So it's a duty. Now when that duty is there, how as a householder to maintain his sense of purity? Because we know what the situation of the age of Kali is. The age of Kali is, he cannot act unless there's sinful activity. And even if one is trying to be a nice householder, where there is the miserly consciousness or hoarding or the false sense of proprietorship of the fruits of my work, that's material life. That's not Krishna conscious life or spiritual life. And so the opposite needs to be there. The purification, because it's my responsibility to earn, it then becomes my responsibility to give. If that sense is not at the core of my duty, just like a brahmachari, they may like to sacrifice the hearing process, but whether they like it or don't like it, if it's their duty, they must do it. And the householder, when situated properly in their household duty, they like. But whether they like or they don't like, it's a duty. And it's abundantly repeated in Srila Prabhupada's teachings about household life, being charitable. He goes so far as to say, of the four varnas, of the four ashrams, one is meant to maintain all four. Boys, put your papers down. Thank you. A brahmachari that has a job, that's not a brahmachari. And a sannyasi that has a job, that's not a sannyasi. And varnaprastha also, they're to live in a simple manner. And so the one ashram, the Grihastha ashram, maintains the other ashrams. They maintain the whole society. I'll tell another little personal story that says, while the Grihastha is being charitable, the Grihastha shouldn't think in a prideful way, I am maintaining the poor brahmachari. It's a duty. So one time it was after a GBC meeting, I was taking boys, if it happens again, I'm going to invite you to go to the back row. Okay. I was taking an overnight train from Calcutta to the next place I was going. And I like overnight trains because, at least what I've learned over the years is, when you get in your little car, little space, at least this is what I do, immediately take rest. Even if I'm not tired. I'm usually tired, but because what goes on until late at night is something that a devotee isn't at all interested in, so just take rest. And get up early. So while everybody is can go and quietly take a bath in that little space there, and then I'm fresh and clean and sit and can chat my rounds before everybody wakes up. It's very nice. And practically speaking, by the time rounds are completed, you're at your destination, ready to go. But somewhere in between, the snorers wake up and they go and splash some water in their face, drink their tea, and then they're ready to go. Read the newspaper. Just used to the routine. So one time, the devotee that I was traveling with got me in a first-class compartment. So the guy that was across the way was a well-to-do businessman, but he was a very proud businessman. I could sense just from the vibration when he walked into the car. It was like, do I have to be in a car with this person, the sadhu, the sannyasi? So anyway, in the morning he got up and brushed his teeth and drank his tea and got his paper and is ready to go and looked at me like he was a high court judge, very stern, and he said, "So?" Like, I'm up here and you're down here. That was the first word he said. So? Do you require money? The message was, you beggar. You parasite. And I said, I forget exactly what I said, but something to the effect that every living entity is... So I understood it was a challenge. His whole mood was challenging, and so the message was a challenge. So my reply was philosophical. I said something to the effect that in this world, every living entity requires their maintenance. And fortunately, we have our Supreme Father, Lord Vishnu, and He's the maintainer of everyone. So whatever it is that we require, we're supplied by Lord Vishnu. Don't you agree? And then he made one other remark. He was a man of a stoic of few words, but his very challenging intellectual type of guy. Said something to the effect of, some of us work, and others are simply living off of the energy of those who work. And my reply was, I said, let me say two things. One thing is, for those who work, who supplies the fruits of their work? And therefore, who is the enjoyer of the fruits of their work? And for those who are being maintained by Lord Vishnu in a different way, they also have their work to do. And their work to do is to serve all the other members of society by giving remembrance of the fact that Lord Vishnu is the controller of us all. That's a nice work to do, and very important in society. And his reply was, and snapped his paper and began reading his paper like, I don't want to see you. So, if one's being a charitable householder, that shouldn't be one's disposition. That on the strength of my labor, these poor beggars are... Rather, it's the other way around. I am being maintained, and I'm being maintained by the maintainer, not by my own work. This is another duty of a householder, is to become learned or become realized in the fact that all the activity that one does should be rendered as a sacrifice unto the Supreme Lord. That's just a karma yoga principle so far. But the work that we do is for our purification, our release from bondage, the material bondage to the work that we do, the work that we must do because it's our ashram, it's Grihastha ashram, we must work. To release us from the bondage of that work, for our purification, we're to be charitable. It's our duty. It's our essence, ashram specific essence. We give in charity, and we should learn in what ways we should give in charity. What's charity in goodness, and charity in passion, and charity in goodness, and strive to perform charity, and strive to perform charity in goodness for my purification. Again, making reference that the brahmachari's purification is sacrifice of the hearing process. That's what constitutes the brahmachari ashram. Sacrifice of the hearing process. And by that sacrifice, it brings their purification. And by the purification, it enables them to maintain that ashram nicely and serve the other three ashrams nicely. And to not do that sacrifice, then it's an anomaly, and for sure anomalous behavior will come out, and it's a disturbance for the other three ashrams. And same can be said. I was just in India, and the last place that I was visiting, a devotee came, what Braj Bihari calls the envelope culture of ISKCON. He came and handed me an envelope. So this is for our purification. Of course, they were emphasizing a point of training that they had received. Sometimes it's, here's to assist your preaching or for your travels or something. But that's the service that's being rendered. But the other side, the message here is, it's purification of the consciousness of the householder to be charitable. Failure to do so is kripana. And doing so is being properly situated as a grihastha. One other message, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur message of charity. This could go on for 3 nights, so I'm just giving you sample. I decided, by the way, in that Houston discussion, that I would follow a principle that I learned from Borijan Prabhu. When you teach something, teach it again, and teach it again, and teach it again. And teach it again. And then people start to understand, oh, this is important. I should pay attention to this because it's being taught again and again. So the principle was, it just for 3 or 4 nights, it was just on this principle. I spoke of other things, but again and again the principle of charity, because Prabhupada gave such emphasis to it. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in his description of, or an episode, a little event that took place at Radhakund, when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, every Kartik did the entire Brajmandal Parikrama. We know this from Prabhupada's life, that it is during one of those Brajmandal Parikramas that Prabhupada received his instruction from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur when walking around Radhakund. Bhaktisiddhanta described to him, ever since we received this Bagh Bazaar temple, marble temple, there's simply quarreling amongst my sannyasi disciples. Who will get which room? Who will be honored in which way? And he stopped and said, if I could, I would sell this temple, sell all the marble, and just print books and preach Krishna consciousness. And said to Prabhupada, if you ever get money, print books. He didn't say, if you ever get money, build temples. Didn't say, don't build temples, but print books. So Prabhupada took that instruction very seriously, much to our good fortune, because we might not be here. Now, temples have their purposes, and Prabhupada has described what that purpose is for propagating Krishna consciousness. But another incident happened at Radhakund where there was a group of wealthy businessmen from Delhi who were on that Brajmandal Parikrama. So they were honored by traveling, moving about with Bhaktisiddhanta on some occasions. So they were moving around Radhakund. And as those of you who have been to Radhakund know, there's poor people, or the mendicants who line up and they sit with their cloth in front of them and they're just chanting all day long, and whatever people give, that's what they use for their maintenance, for their food. So as they were going along, they were listening to Bhaktisiddhanta, which is nice, and they weren't making contributions to those Vaishnavas, elderly Vaishnavas, and often widows, Vaishnavis. So he stopped, and he chastised them. He said, very interesting message. He said, don't think that now you are Vaishnavas, you need not take up the acts of a karmakanda performer by giving in charity, because it's a karmakanda injunction. That you, by your giving charity, you get piety. So give charity because you'll get piety. In a karmakanda sense. So now that you're a Vaishnava, do not think, you are thinking that you need not perform karmakanda rituals, which is true. We need not perform karmakanda rituals. But he said, but these are Vaishnavas, and it's your duty to maintain the Vaishnavas. So you should maintain the Vaishnavas. Now I heard this long ago, and from an old Back to God, really like those black and white mimeographed Back to Godhead magazines. little Bhaktisiddhanta story. But we often don't see those people as what they are. We don't see them as Vaishnavas, we see them as just... And often, in Kali Yuga, everything becomes disturbed, so people just do those things because it's easy way of maintenance. You know, in some cities, stoplights are a haven for... You know, I read an article where anyway, it's yucky what goes on. People back, you know, in the impoverished places, they train up, they make a prostitution ring. And once the women become pregnant, then those women service, because they're not good at being the prostitute anymore, they go to the street and beg money. They carry a little baby, and people feel sad, and so they give some money. And all it's doing is feeding a prostitution ring. You know, like exposés on this type of thing. The vicious mentality is exploitative mentality. So it's the message is not give money to poor people. Specifically, this instruction of Bhaktisiddhanta was those who are Vaishnavas, some charity. Because that's those who are fit recipients. And if one can give charity at the temple to serve the deity and carry out the missionary work of Krishna consciousness, or print Krishna conscious literature, or conduct festivals, or maintain the temple, or contribute to the sadhu who is spreading Krishna consciousness far and wide, those acts of charity it's the duty of a householder. While I was just speaking, I thought of something else of Burijan. He's a dear god brother, and we went to college together. He gave me my first Back to Godhead magazine. I never let him forget it, because I don't forget it. And that magazine helped me become a devotee. And the first deepening of interest in Bhakti Shastri came as a result of Burijan's association, and just so on and so on. Some important lessons in my Krishna conscious life I've gained from him over the course of the years. I have a lot of appreciation and respect for Burijan Prabhu. So he was once visiting in New York. He rarely had come back to the States because he was mainly based in Vrindavan teaching. So he's visiting in New York, and I view him as an ideal householder. So he has 2 children, both of whom are very nice devotees, and his wife is a wonderful devotee, and he's a wonderful devotee. He's a wonderful Krishna conscious example. Just to be with him, you feel, wow, what a wonderful devotee. So, to have an example as a Grihastha in New York, this was some years ago. I lose track of time, so it moves so fast. But there were a number of devotees who had just been married, and there were a few devotee couples who were going to be married. So I asked him, would you conduct a 3-day seminar on our topic, essential principles of Krishna conscious household life? So he agreed. And after I didn't give him any parameters. It just, it was at 26 Avenue, and it was advertised, hear ye, anybody that's interested, and he made points specifically those that we knew would be interested would come, and so it was a nice turnout. And afterwards I asked him, how did it go? He said it was a good turnout, and people, It was a nice exchange. And I asked him, what points did you bring out? He said, actually, I just made one point. He followed that principle. I took a course from him in Vrindavan. We were co-teaching in the VIHE, the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education. I was teaching different things each year. And one year he chose to teach the art of teaching. He wrote that nice big book, The Art of Teaching, so he gave a course on the art of teaching. And for 1 full month, he just taught one subject, one message. I still to this day remember that one message. I don't remember so many other things that I learned in the course of the other seminars that I attended. But that repetition worked. And he did it in creative ways, but each day the theme was, if you want to teach effectively, the phrase was explicit educational objective. The essence of 1 month in Vrindavan was that. Have in mind an explicit educational objective. And then, what does explicit mean? We gave examples. What's not explicit, what's explicit. What's an objective besides what's, say, think in a certain way. It's a behavior. How would you like those who you're addressing to behave? An explicit education. So we did it in breakout sessions and role play and this and that, and the theme was that one thing, to be an effective teacher. And there's an art of how to do that, but so he did the same thing with the group of young Grihasthas. He said, I just taught them one thing and I did it for 3 days. And I said, well, what was that one thing? He said, I said it in the positive and I said it in the negative. In the positive, I said, if you want to have successful Grihastha life, follow strictly the regular principles. If you want to have problems in your household life, don't strictly follow the regular principles. And that was my message. I said, how'd they take it? I said, the way that I described, I think most of them got it. How well they'll follow it, I can't say. Because it was largely a Western group of young American boys and girls, just married or to be married. So there's another strict following. So that message, that phrase that Prabhupada used, strict following, has something to do with the modern household life, what to speak of modern Krishna conscious household life. You have a lot of responsibilities. It's not that sannyas life is a life of irresponsibility. I have a lot of responsibilities also. But it's a particular type of, or set of responsibilities. And, it can make your head spin when you're trying to do all those responsibilities. So your job, and your home, and your family, and your relatives, and your social obligations, and your sadhana, and your finance, and it's a lot of things. And there's expectations from each of these sectors, and so one of the duties of a household life, essential duties of a household life, is to have a very regulated life with strong sadhana. And by doing that, it'll make your Grihastha life strong. And failing to do that, things become very complicated immediately. It doesn't take time at all for things to become complicated. Immediately they're complicated. Oh, what do I do? Now there's so much pressure over here. So I can't do these things over here. And the people that have expectations over here, they're unhappy with me. What do I do? So rather than say, well, just put more energy over here, and, the word balance is often used. How do I balance my spiritual and material, or my various duties? And in one word, regulated. Regulated is a symptom of the quality of goodness. And unregulated or irregular is a symptom either of passion or ignorance. So strive to be very regulated. So a way to establish regulation for Krishna conscious household life starts with sadhana. It may look like, oh, there's another thing I have to do. That doesn't help. It takes time to do that. Now, I don't even have enough time as it is. How can I do this? And by establishing proper sadhana, it comes to the point where, how did I even live my life without having proper sadhana? Because it's such chaos without it, even though it takes time. Strong sadhana, like strong. So, in the first part of the day, one of the keys to strong sadhana is do it early in the morning. And one of the keys to doing it early in the morning is get up early in the morning. And one of the keys to getting up early in the morning is go to bed early at night. And if you don't go to bed early at night, you can't get up early in the morning regularly. And if you don't get up early in the morning regularly, you can't have strong sadhana. Because you do it piecemeal throughout the day, if that's your program, it's not as strong as early in the morning. Everyone has that experience. So to do that, the rest in the evening on a regular basis, you have to have a mode of goodness life. You can't have a mode of passion or mode of ignorance life. It has to be a mode of goodness life. Your lifestyle has to become more mode of goodness. And then one of the things that happens in a Grihastha's life is time wasters there isn't space for them. There's no time to waste time. And when you start allowing the mind and the senses to go into time wasters, it disrupts that quality of goodness, and your regulation becomes disturbed, and your whole life becomes disturbed by the influence of passion and ignorance, more than it needs to be, more than you would want it to be. Strong sadhana is a foundation for placing Krishna at the center of what you do throughout the day that may be less evident that it's for Krishna than your hearing and chanting, your sadhana. So let it be very strong and regulated. It's a duty. To say duty, it's like, I don't have a taste for it, but I'll do it because it's a duty. That's what that idea connotates. In the sense of it's your duty, so do it. But going on the other side of just because you're supposed to do it, it's what a very strong Krishna conscious householder does. They're very regulated. They have very strong sadhana. And that gives strength. Both the regulation and the strong sadhana, both gives strength to remaining Krishna conscious, even in the face of some really challenging situation. In any of those fronts, challenging in the workplace, challenging in the family, challenging in finance, challenging with relatives, challenging. So you can carry forward and not be flipped by circumstance if that component is very strong in your life. It gives a Krishna-centered perspective on your whole life. Where the happiness is a happiness within. That's the happiness of the quality of goodness. So this is now, I'm going to go into the next very important quality or component of a Krishna conscious family, is that we'll start with the husband and wife. Each are very carefully culturing internally their inner life of Krishna consciousness. And the husband is respecting the wife is respecting the husband, and assisting one another in deepening that internal Krishna consciousness. That's the dynamic of a good Krishna conscious household couple. They have and they respect and support that internal life of Krishna consciousness in one another. Flip it around and say it the other way. The other way is to not see one another as the person who's meant to satisfy my desires. I've attended a few weddings with Radhanath Maharaj where he and I were attending the wedding because one of his disciples and one of my disciples were marrying. And I've noticed that he's made this remark every time. He makes several things, but this one remark he makes every time, that do not see the wife as your property, an object to be enjoyed, and do not see your husband as a person who's meant to fulfill your desires. That's the job description. Don't see like that. See, here is a spirit soul who I've been given now this new service as husband and wife to assist one another, to serve one another in progressing in Krishna consciousness. I'm saying the same thing in a more explicit way. Same thing. There's an internal cultivation of Krishna consciousness, a happiness, a joy in chanting, a joy in serving the deity, a joy in serving the Vaishnavas, a joy in being charitable, a joy of hearing. An internal happiness that must be there if we're going to have that sense of this is important, and that value becomes their value. Naturally it becomes their value. It manifests in imitation of behaviors. They want to do the arti, or they want to sit there and move their hand like that as if they're chanting. Just imitate. But in course of time it becomes a value. It's not just the behavior, it's the internal consciousness that's being nurtured. And the way that social interaction is to respect when that's going on. That, I don't place demands on others when chanting is going on or the class is going on. One family I know had a more energetic than usual young son. He was all over the place, like up the walls and across the ceiling and down the other side. Whoa, that's an energetic boy you have there. And it was very difficult whenever they had guests in their home, because they were running a little preaching center, that, energetic boy didn't know when to be energetic and when not to be energetic. So they had to train him when class is going on. You're not energetic. Here's some activity for you to do that's quiet. And then as soon as class was over, he made up for it. Now that young boy is a young adult, and he's a very respectful young adult. The cultivation of and the respect for in others becomes then also a social fabric. How you see others starts with how you see yourself and how you see. I use this phrase all the time: charity begins at home. Charity doesn't just mean, okay, who are the people out there, but it's charity. It begins at home, and charity in spiritual cultivation begins within your heart and within the family. It's a common instruction or advice that I offer when young couples first get married, and they ask the question, okay, what's our Krishna conscious duty? My encouragement for them is that two main things: very strong basis in your family, in your day-to-day routine, very strong sadhana, and very strong relationship between you, the two of you, for 3 years at least. Make that your focus. So it's fixed. Other things that you can do, fine. But don't do other things to neglect of those two things. Some service, fine. You have to look after your career, fine. Put those two things in proper place, and everything will come out very nicely. The concern, one other thought comes, and that's the concern for children. Just advice is don't force, but make the atmosphere conducive so that the children will want, of their own volition, they'll want to do Krishna conscious activity by their own choice. And if it's by their own choice, then it will continue in their young adult, the challenging, ever so challenging teenage years, and then beyond. Set an example. Be inviting by the happiness that you as husband and wife have in your relationship with one another and in your devotional practices. These are these same 2 points, sadhana and your relationship, that it's just inviting. This is happiness. This is our great happiness. I see it, I feel it, I'm experiencing it, I want it. And then they choose it. Then you don't have to force. It comes. Force, and it may bring obedience, but it also brings resentment on some level. It's 9 o'clock. I started late, so I'm going to end. See if there's any. We'll continue tomorrow. See if there's any discussion. You got one?
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for the nice presentation. Very valuable instructions. Many of these instructions we hear, particularly in my case, I think how I wish I had done something about this some time ago. Now having a child, having to, focus on taking care of the child, not being able to put enough energy on building up or rebuilding the sadhana again. How, at this point in time, how to balance the two?
When I hear that word balance, something happens inside. Because balance means either or, and I don't see either or. So here's where my thought goes. To balance. If I see there's the secular vision is that which is God, that which is for God. I'm not saying that you're speaking in this way, but that which is for God and that which is worldly. For me or my family. That's, secularism. This is the religious part of my life, and this is the worldly part of my life. Like, as in our government, the secular government. Separation of church and state. Our duties, our life as devotees is to dovetail or spiritualize the material aspects of life. And if we properly do one, we can do both. If we don't properly do one, we can't do either. So special attention needs to go to the one. To have balance is to take away the choice, and that everything is for Krishna. To get to that position, strong sadhana must be there. It's not to be compromised. How to do that will vary from circumstance to circumstance, life to life, and demands to, for one person to another. And even in that same person, during stages, like when there's a newborn child, that's one stage, and when there's regulation for that child, that's another stage, and so on. So even within an individual's life. But that striving to see in relation to Krishna and to do the worldly parts of my life for Krishna is part of how you strike the balance. Because when you see like that, the events of the day flow one way. When you don't see like that, the events of the day flow another way. I've heard this repeatedly from devotees who are householders that have jobs and children and homes and stuff to do. There's a one-to-one correlation between the quality of sadhana and how the events of the day flow. Consistently. And even if there's really bad chanting one day, it can throw things off for days or for weeks, depending. So balance means to do one nicely and to spiritualize in a deliberate way. It's not, I just do my good chanting and everything else, I don't, my thoughtfulness can be on the off position. It's meant to activate your thoughtfulness so that in the course of the execution of your non-sadhana portion of your day, you're not just sitting in your home and attentively bringing your consciousness to the lotus feet of Krishna, that effort should be there throughout the day. And then it's not so much a balance. The balance, the essence is Krishna consciousness, and when the essence of Krishna consciousness is activated, the balance is easier to strike. Because the energies of Krishna work differently upon us depending upon our submission to Krishna. So try to mold your life, I'm just not you, but speaking in a general way, try to mold your life in such a way that there's a conscious effort to dedicate, be present with Krishna in each thing that you do. Be present with Krishna when you're chanting the holy name. Be present with Krishna. Be present with Krishna when you're not chanting the holy name at your home, you're in the workplace. Do this for Krishna. When you're in social circumstances, you do this for Krishna. Take a standard for you as an initiated devotee. There's the minimum standard, but others may or may not be initiated, and main thing is you have a very strong commitment to a strong sadhana, whatever that means. At a different point in one's trajectory of Krishna consciousness, it may mean something different for different devotees. Be very fixed in that strong sadhana, and that in a regulated way, and it gives strength to the other things that you do. It makes the other part of it far more spiritually manageable, both internally and externally. And it's a good idea from time to time to just hit the refresh or reset button and consider, okay, what's reasonable for me to do, depending upon my spiritual advancement, depending upon the material circumstances. I may have to reset. But whatever it comes to that, realistic and wholesome reset, be very determined, enthusiastic to maintain that spiritual core, the hearing and chanting core, so that the other parts can also be strongly Krishna conscious. That's how to make the balance. There is a component of time management, and it's not just for grihasthas, but the essential components. Let's say, okay, I've got a lot of demand at work. I'm not going to compromise my sadhana, so does that mean I'm going to compromise quality exchanges with my family? And you do that for some time, and you got another problem on your hand. You can't do that. So there has to be both proper communication with the family members in the home, and something in the workplace so they can understand I'm not going to neglect the family members of my home. I'm just not going to do it. So if this job requires that I do that, you have to rethink what the job is going to be, because so the family has to be ready for the ebbs and the flows of the pressures that, as a husband and as a father and as a caregiver for others, as a service to Guru and Krishna, that's something that's in your heart. And so there will be ebbs and flows over periods of time, and those who you're very close with need to allow for that. You need to allow for that. But balancing, when it starts cutting over some period of time into very core like family or sadhana areas over a period of time, then you need some like a major overhaul, because you can't let that happen. Sometimes it's quite often, at least my experiences, it's a matter of quality sadhana. If the quality sadhana is there, the time is there. Because it's the internal potency rules instead of the external potency rules in your life. And as more responsibility comes, it's like, where am I going to put all this? More responsibility. If it starts to take away from quality sadhana, you're finished. And all those who are depending upon you are also harmed. So quality sadhana has to remain. Then it's easier to find balance. The children are enthusiastic this evening. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for giving a class in spite of an exam journey from India. Thank you so much.
Is that where I've been?
You were mentioning about how a newly married couple should follow their household life. How about couples who are married for some time now, and what they would have got used to a certain way of materialistic life, and how to see each other as spirit souls and still continue in the Krishna conscious life, overcoming all their all the things that they have got used to in their married life.
Prabhupada's phrases make the best use of a bad bargain. By the material conceptions that I had before marriage, and now I'm married, and I've been living for some time with material conceptions, and now I'm introduced to Krishna consciousness, how do I deal with the fact that I had so many material conceptions, and then so many ways of life that match those material conceptions, and Krishna conscious life is different. Well, it's like any situation. It's you see where the standard is. It's nice to have role models of standards. What's standard? And then acknowledge, okay, I'm not at that standard, I'm here. And things that are in between are, here's a list of things that are my life is made up of. What can I eliminate? It's a nice, what I'm just describing is a common practice that we would have in our Bhakta programs in days when we were making lots of new devotees. So the Bhakta leader, in the course of having a relationship with this Bhakta in the Bhakta program, would sit down with him, and they literally would make a list on a piece of paper. What are the things that are your attachments? Okay, make a really full list. Is there something, now the list is done, is there something on that list that you think you could live without? It's an attachment. Oh, yeah, okay, think about it. Don't just say it, give it a day or two. Yeah, I think I can do without that. Okay. What should we do Bhakta and Bhakta leader, do to help overcome that attachment? Oh, it's not so hard, I could just do this. Okay. So you start eliminating things that are useless, that looked like attachments before, but as your Krishna consciousness grows, they just fall away anyways. And then comes the deeper ones. Like I'm really attached to taking strength beyond your efforts. And as you expressed it, it's the conception of who I am and what life is has to be addressed. And it's the spiritual conception. Like this very fundamental thing. If it didn't happen at the time of your marriage, then you hit the reset and says, okay, my wife is not an object for me to enjoy. Now I have a license to enjoy. And she's the object. And the wife is not to think, my husband is to fulfill all of my desires. Rather, to see in a spiritual conception. Together we're going to serve Krishna. We're to assist one another. That's our service. That's our relationship. To assist one another in serving Krishna. As spirit soul, because our journey is to go back to Godhead. So if I can't do that, how can I do that for the children? If I can't do that for myself and my wife, they're also an object for me to enjoy. You're not behaving the way I like, so I'm angry. And that's what the child's experience. Why is the person that's so big up there, why are they always so angry at me? Anything else? Here comes the microphone.
Okay, sure. Maharaj, you were telling about two principles for the Grihastha life. Two main principles. One of the two focuses. You said strong sadhana and strong relationships. Can you elaborate a little more on how to cultivate strong relationship in Grihastha life?
I didn't go there yet deliberately because of the hour, because that's a big topic. But we can speak about it tomorrow more extensively. And the key to have good Krishna conscious relationships is to be fixed in the spiritual conception oneself. Two things, and a mood of service. Let's go to the root. Who am I? In this relationship, who am I? So go to the spiritual platform, and I'm a spirit soul, they're a spirit soul, and my existence is to render service. So, in what way can I be of service to this other individual? Not the other way. How can this person bring gratification of my needs and wants and concerns? And that's the relationship. It's a service relationship. Sometimes we're receiving something, that's nice. Service. The mood of service makes for a very nice Krishna conscious relationship. Then there's exchanges of service. Subject, object, position may change. And nobody's keeping score. So we'll speak some more about that tomorrow. Social needs are certainly a needs of every individual, and we can speak about Grihastha's social needs. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.